The challenge is that the provincial reporting and accountability for teacher preparation programs are weak. They look good on paper, but in reality, what we see on paper is not what we see in an actual classroom. So accountability has to be built in. And accountability can only be built in if we, at the top, have people of integrity. What is wrong is wrong. What's not acceptable is not acceptable. There is no sense covering up. If we cover up, our system is not going to improve. So it's important to identify the weaknesses. The road ahead, we need new regulations to build on momentum in improving teacher education programs. New regulations. We can't be doing the same stuff that we've been doing in the past. All right? So how many of us are really willing to unlearn, relearn? Okay? It's, as someone said, it is easy to educate the uneducated than to re-educate the miseducated. Think about it. That's true today. So, the industrial age model, put everybody through the same program, do the same testing, is not going to work today. We have to move to the digital age and bring in the learning model. Are our students learning? We have to stop focusing on numbers. What have you learned? Is e-learning effective? Are learners ready? More than that, do we have ready instructors to teach in the e-mode? That's the bigger question. So, traditional and e-learning, classrooms will be different. We cannot, see, that's the bricks. They're not going to work. You need clicks. You need gadgets. Content, we cannot teach the same content the same way that we've been teaching. How do you digitalize everything? Personalization. Learning and teaching has to be personal to the individual student. Are we ready to do that? In our classrooms with 80, 100 students, it's not possible. In a digital setting, it is. So, the delivery mode, traditional, goes face-to-face is 100% technology, hardly any. Blended, 80% face-to-face, 20% technology, again, not much. I mean, 80%, 4/5 is still face-to-face. Digital is the opposite. 20% face-to-face and 80% is digital or through technology, and that's where distance education and online education and all that stuff kinds of comes in. So are we willing to move from the bricks to the clicks? That's the key. Okay, so what do we have in traditional with the bricks? Growing student population, increase in tuition fee, lack of facilities and funding. Okay, we crib about all this all the time. On the other hand, with clicks, we need more virtual universities. We need more online facilities. Cost-effective solutions, e-learning is way more cost-effective, and privatization of education, unless we do it. See, the government can't do everything. And then the private individuals or groups or organizations need to step in and help. Teaching aids will change from blackboards to OHPs to TVs and VHS to LCDs, PCs, smart boards, and then, of course, all your gadgets. Your smartphone, come on. We walk around with that gadget 24/7. Use it constructively. Teacher obligations will change. Use all available technology. All. What is available? At least start with what's available. Then we'll see the bigger things that you want. Encourage collaborative learning. See, competition has to stop. Cooperation, collaboration needs to come in. Lay foundation for lifelong learning. Online, digital stuff. You don't need a teacher. You don't need an instructor. You can do it on your own. provided you've learned lifelong learning skills, incorporate old and new. Yes, you do need to learn vocabulary, you do need to learn spellings, you do need to learn certain stuff, but old and the new, they need to kind of have an amalgam and come together. Building an e-learning culture, the learner, the student, self-directed, self-motivated, self-regulating. In our classrooms, the self, unfortunately, is out. It's all what I want. That's what you will do. Forget yourself. The teacher is in control, even in an e-learning environment. The instructor, the teacher, is definitely in control. The administrator also then has a role to play, because the resources are dependent on what the administrator thinks is required for the institution or group or for the students to be actually learning. So here we see the impact of technology. We start with the trees and the leaves and paper, textbooks, the telephone, the television, the dish, the PCs, and the internet has had the greatest impact. How much of the internet do we use in our classrooms? How much of this technology do we use in our classrooms is absolutely critical. And internet is available 24/7 and it's free. Now, there is an exponential growth of information and knowledge. To target 50 million people, it took the radio 38 years, the television 30 years, the internet 4, the iPod 3, and the Facebook 2. And the number of internet connections has gone up from 1,000 in 1984 to 1 million in 1992 to 1 trillion in 2008. And this is a good 12 years ago. Okay? So, do you see the impact that technology and internet has played in the role here in education and reaching people? Truth of e-learning. Internet has started reshaping education, and we better admit it. And the sooner we buy that fact and we begin to incorporate internet use, it will help our students. There is no going back. You can't turn around and say paper and pencil. It's too late. There's no way you're going back to paper and pencil. And many universities, colleges, and schools may not survive by the end of this decade if you are not changing to technology, digital, internet, and all that. E-learning tools, emails, come on, we are familiar with that. I'm not going to dwell too much on that. Chat, you do it, right? Don't tell me you don't chat. Yeah, for whatever reason, but we do it. So chats, we could do them for academic purposes. Online forums, I don't know how many of you are members of any online forum and how much you participate and contribute, but that's another way to get the e-learning tools into the classroom. Web, do you have a website, a web page? Do you post things for students? Do you direct students towards websites to get information that they need or will need? Video conferencing, if you've ever done it, I know lots of universities have the video conferencing facility, but how much of that is used or is just locked? Now, the digital use divide. We talk of the digital divide. Who has access to computers, to laptops, to iPads, to smartphones? But that's not important. Even if you have access, it's the digital use. The divide in the digital use. Are you using it only for entertainment, for social purposes? Or are you using it only to fill digital worksheets? That's not good use of digital technology. We need to do something else with it. How do we bridge this digital use divide? Because if we only use it for entertainment and social purposes, not for academic purposes, we will miss out. So here it is. We need to move, if we want to bridge the digital use divide, to coding, immersive simulation, not just simulation in which you can be part of what's happening, media production, interaction with experts can happen easily, global connections, you can connect whenever, wherever you want, design and design technology and design instruction, all that is coming up, and peer collaboration, working with peers who work in the same area as you but somewhere else. So lots of ways in which you can actually help bridge the digital use divide. Authentic learning simply should answer the question, are our students future ready? For their future, not my future. Are they ready for their future? What will our students in classrooms today be doing in 2030? Are we preparing them for that? Life in 2030 is going to be very different. Are we working to their future, not our future? So we've moved. Now you see this 2005, 2010, 2020. ICT-based economy was an information society. We needed facts. 5 years down the road, it became a knowledge society through knowledge products and services, and more stuff became available for education purposes. By 2020, we are in a competitive knowledge economy. We are in that competitive society. Are our students able to compete at par in the real world? It's the question we instructors and teachers need to ask. So what are employers looking in university graduates today? They're looking for commercial awareness, business acumen. Do they have the skills? Are our students still job seekers, or are we creating job creators? That's the commercial awareness, business acumen. Communication, which is both written and verbal. Can they flawlessly, fluently, accurately write, talk, discuss, negotiate, do those kinds of things that require communication skills? Teamwork. Working in isolation, in our classrooms, we still have students sitting in rows and columns, do your own work. Why? Why can't they collaborate? Why can't they work together? And sometimes students learn better from their peers than they learn from us. And there's nothing wrong with that. Negotiation and persuasion. I may disagree with you, but can we negotiate? Can one of us persuade, either I persuade you or you persuade me? Those are skills that are needed in today's job market. That's what employers want young graduates to have. Problem solving. Remember, students in our classrooms today have had no role to play in the problems that exist today. Greenhouse effect, ozone depletion, deforestation, pollution, contamination, name it. Our generation has created that. But they will need to solve some of those problems if they want a decent future for themselves. Are we teaching them problem-solving skills? Leadership. Are we creating leaders in our classrooms or just followers? And I think the answer is we are still creating followers. Students do exactly as we've told them. They're following. So you see, a test score does not measure intelligence or learning. It measures how obedient you've been to the instructor. The instructor told you to learn it, you learned it, you came and you delivered it. That's not good leadership. Our students need to be leaders. Organization, how organized are you? Time management, what do you do with your time? Remember, time is the single commodity that every human being has the same of. We all have 24 hours in our day. What do we do with those 24 hours will determine what we become. Perseverance and motivation needs to be intrinsic. See, the real world doesn't reward you for every good that you do, so there is no extrinsic motivation coming. Motivation needs to be intrinsic. Ability to work under pressure, because things change so fast, so rapidly, you will be under pressure. Can you remain calm when you are under stress and deliver? And finally, confidence. Are our students confident? Do they believe in their own abilities? Do they believe in themselves? Because if you don't believe in yourself, I'm not stupid, why would I believe in you? But where have we developed this confidence in our students? So, these 10 are top traits that employers are looking from university graduates today. And none of those 10 are based on content, knowledge, or information. They're all based on skills. So employability increases with and through skills. Our students should be getting the skills, not just the content. Learning is your responsibility. If you're not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. But we have to build that determination in our students. We have to show them why learning today benefits them 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line. Are our students determined to learn? How students are like popcorn. When we prepare popcorn, we put the kernels in a pot, put the pot on a flame. All the kernels get the same flame, the same heat, the same time, but they don't all pop at the same time. It happens sporadically. And that's the same with students in our classrooms. They will pop. Let their time come. We rush them. We expect everybody in the classroom to be at the same level, at the same time, all the time. It's an unrealistic classroom expectation. So let our students pop when their time is right. And food for thought, this is from Imam Ali. Do not force your children to behave like you, for surely they have been created for a time which is different from your time. Our time, when we were children and we were growing up, was different. If I want my children to be like me, it's going to disadvantage them. And Imam Ali said that long, long time ago. Why don't we believe it? Let our children be what they want to be. There is more to life than doctors and engineers. And these jobs are not going to exist. You know, there are like over 15,000 jobs won't exist in the next 5 to 10 years. Instead, there'll be 20,000 other new jobs that will exist. We don't know what those jobs are. We can't prepare students for those jobs, but we can prepare them for lifelong learning. Are we willing to help our students be future ready for their future, for their 2030, 2040, 2050? We hope they're not dying that soon. Okay? So, basically what we've looked at is why we need to be future ready with our students, why we need to focus on technology. And I'll end with an example from a Muslim country, Jordan. Jordan's education went paperless in 2015. Jordan had an MOU with Intel, which they signed well in 2000, a 15-year agreement. It was the first 5-year plan, the second 5-year plan, and the third 5-year plan. The first 5-year plan on target, second 5-year plan on target. I was in Bangkok in 2008 at a conference, Intel conference, where I learned this. They used Jordan's example for the world. And 2015, they did it. Their schools, their colleges have no pen, paper, nothing. It's all digital. If Jordan can do it, what's wrong with us? You see, are we serious about the future of our students? If we are, then we'll have to find the ways to empower them, not us. Thank you.
Before I call my second keynote speaker, there is an announcement for poster presenters. Please go to the first floor and arrange your poster presentations there, because during tea time, your poster presentation will be seen by everybody. So please, if you can go to the first floor for your posters. Our second keynote speaker is Professor Taj Haider. He is a member of Senate Government of Pakistan. He was honored with Sitara-e-Imtiaz in 2012. He is member of Standing Committee for Education, Industry, Production, Energy, and Scientific and Technological Research. He has been affiliated with University of Karachi, DJ Science College, Pakistan Academy of Letters, Pakistan Mathematical Society, and PTV. He will shed light on relevance of curriculum. I would like to invite, sir, please.
Professor Nasir Mahmood, Professor Dabash, learned members of the faculty, fellow students. Yesterday when I was here, I kept wondering what a political worker was doing in the company of, in such distinguished company of academicians. That sense of wonder gave me the topic. And the topic of my submissions today would be the importance of political will in enhancement of quality and relevance of education. And with that, I recalled something that had happened with me in 1986. I was writing for Pakistan Television, and we were producing a film in collaboration with the Chinese television. And we toured China. We went to many places. And we also visited the University of Applied Sciences at Hangzhou. And we had the honor of meeting the chairperson of the physical chemistry department. And there, somehow we started talking about enrichment of uranium and what Pakistan was doing in enrichment of U-235. After some time, she said, you are an author, you are a playwright, and you are talking about uranium, and that's very amazing. The leader of delegation interjected, and he said, Madam, Senator Mr. Taj Haider comes from a very distinguished family of academicians, and his father is a great teacher, and he started praising my father in a way that I felt embarrassed. And I said, certainly, the learned professor also comes from a very distinguished family of academicians, and her parents also are distinguished teachers. And she started laughing. And she said, I never saw my parents. There was a market in Shanghai before revolution where poor people sold their children. And says, she said, when I was just 4 years old, I was rescued by the People's Liberation Army from that market. And the state took the responsibility of looking after me and educating me. And there she was, guiding more than 20 students to do their PhDs, fluent in 6 languages, speaking better English than I do, and discussing the problems of enriching uranium. So this is an incident which is etched deep in my memory. We have made the Constitution of Pakistan, and we have, on which I have taken oath twice. The principles of policy and the base fundamental rights, the part 2 of the Constitution, enjoins upon us to make education a basic right of every Pakistani. It enjoins upon us, on the state of Pakistan, to make education available to every Pakistani. In 2010, we brought the 18th Amendment, and we added another article in the Principles of Policy, Article 25A, which made it a duty of the state to see that all children from the ages of 5 and 16 were educated. How far has this art? And of course, the provinces have also passed the laws to implement, to formalize this article of the Constitution, which was put in after the 18th Amendment. How far have we gone in it? How far has the state done its duty? How far we still have to go? That's a basic question. The way things are, it appears that quality education has become the monopoly of the elite, the monopoly of those who can pay for it. And a large section of our population is excluded from any kind of education. Does the state work only for the elite? Lord Bertrand Russell says that it does. It looks after the interests of the elite. But let me point out, and let me once again go back to the Constitution of Pakistan. There is an elected part of the state, and there is a non-elected part of the state. While Russell is right that yes, the state works for the interests of the elite, it's the non-elected part which does so. It's the duty of the elected members of the assemblies and the parliament to look after the interests and the rights of those who elect us. So, I also quote the founder of Pakistan, Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who in 1913 had said that we have to move from bureaucracy to democracy. What has really happened is that everything is bureaucratized. Bureaucracy has extended its role in all spheres of our society. Shaheed Zulfiqar Ali Bhutto, he nationalized education in order to make it within the reach of all Pakistanis, in order to have better working conditions for the teachers who were badly exploited in those days. But once the dictators came and once the elected governments were sent home, education was bureaucratized. And people talk about the decay in the quality of education. Fellow students point out that sector of our society which has not decayed because the state has not performed its duty. And slowly the responsibilities of the state are being taken over by non-government organizations, by organizations of the people. Which other country has people like Abdul Sattar Edi or Dr. Akhtar Hamid Khan? And there are so many other organizations which are working in the social sectors and which have found innovative methods and which are providing solutions to the problems that the people of Pakistan face. The state of Pakistan has certainly receded. One effect has been that in our society, excellence has become a handicap. People are afraid of those who are really working hard and who are contributing to the society. Sycophancy and mediocrity, those are the factors that are rewarded in our society. And that's what is happening in our educational institutions also, unfortunately. That those who really want to teach, those who really want to know the unknown, are being discouraged. The political side has gone through a long struggle. We have struggled for the restoration of democracy. The struggle has been very hard. We have lost some of our best Pakistanis in that struggle. But there has been a success, and a great success, in the sense that today there is national unity on the question of democracy. Then there was a struggle against terrorism. The country bled. But once again, I'm happy to note that there is unanimity of opinion on the question of religious extremism and terrorism. And instead of extremism and emotionalism, an era of rationalism has started in our society. And we have started at looking at ourselves, looking at our own deficiencies, and trying to find out solutions. Well, these are the gains. And the greatest gain is that people of Pakistan have attained very high political consciousness. And let us remember that that consciousness is something which is irreversible. Once it attains a level, it never goes down. It can only go up. That perhaps is our greatest asset. And that perhaps for us who don't have a People's Liberation Army like Mao Zedong had, perhaps the only power in our hands is our political consciousness of our people. The duty of leaders, political leaders, you can only lead by uniting. You cannot lead by dividing the people. And it's high time that the political side knew that on national issues, all political shades of opinion and all people and all active members of the society should stand united. Journalists, opinion makers. Now that's also a realization which is coming in. But of course, as I said, everything stands bureaucratized, and instead of moving from bureaucracy, from democracy, there have been long periods in our national history where we have rejected democracy and where we have allowed bureaucracy to take more and more control. I've made a list of some of the problems that bureaucracy, and the first problem is that a bureaucratic mindset has creeped in. The value system has changed. Now, there is more relevance of authority and showmanship than real hard work. In educational institutions, I have seen, I don't know what's the situation in universities of Punjab, but in Sindh, I have seen that once a teacher does his PhD, he stops teaching. He stops taking classes. And he confines himself to administrative work of the department. This is a job of a bureaucrat, not that of a teacher. And I recall that when my father became Vice Chancellor, the first Vice Chancellor, founding Vice Chancellor of the Balochistan University, he made it a practice to teach the new students and take the first period himself, and that ensured that nobody was late because the Vice Chancellor himself was teaching. And then, of course, after a couple of periods, he would go back to his office and do the administrative work, which was his responsibility. But now when I find that once you are a PhD, you distance yourself from teaching students. I'm in the government, and I find that teachers are all the time talking about their promotions and their grades. Very rarely they talk about what they are teaching. Once I got so exhausted with the arguments that I said to the learned teachers that why are you allergic to books and why are you allergic to knowledge? Because 1 hour has passed and nobody has talked about what is to be taught and what are the academic activities. And this morning I was sitting here and I received a call of a student. A student had done his BBA from one of the universities, federal universities in Karachi, the Urdu University. And for his MBA, he had joined one in a university in Islamabad. The university in Islamabad told him that you can't attend the classes because you have to present your degree. And the university in Karachi said your degree is not ready and you have to wait for months. Then through another senator of Pakhtunkhwa, he approached me and he said, "Sir, I am facing this problem." And then I approached that university in Karachi and requested them to please expedite the issue of his degree so that he can attend his classes here. Now, this is the kind of bureaucratic mindset that people have to deal with. These are the problems that our students have to face. And this has increased over time. Professor Nasir Mahmood, I want to relate another incident. One of my elders at the time of independence was studying in Aligarh University. And he had appeared in his exams, and then he had migrated to Pakistan. He had passed his exams. 8 years later, he visited Aligarh University. And in the office, there was just a senior clerk sitting, and he said, "My name is this." And I appeared in my exams and passed them in 1947. He just took out a file on which 1947 was written, took out his degree, which was already there, and said, "Just go across the road, get an affidavit typed, pay 2 rupees to the typist, and here is your degree." So this is the kind of deterioration that has taken place and the bureaucratization that has. And the more you can make people suffer, the more powerful you are. Problems are being created by the Higher Education Commission. They are the ones who control the funds, although the Constitution doesn't allow them to do. The Federal Legislative List Part 2 is very clear about the duties, and their duties to maintain the standards only. They can't control the funds. And with the funds in their hand, they continue to manipulate the universities. I mean, now, of course, perhaps there is a new formula for distribution of funds, which is related to the number of students that are being taught. Then the greatest problem that is coming is the increase in the tuition fee. And once again, this is a clear move that higher education has to be restricted to the elite only. And this is where politicians should put their foot down. This is where those who are elected to represent the people have to put their foot down. I'll go quickly through my notes. The first is, how do we cross these hurdles? What is to be done? And I think that after the successful struggle for the restoration of democracy and creating a consensus, a national consensus against terrorism and extremism, the new frontiers are a struggle against the social, moral, and economic backwardness. And that's what the political parties have to do. Our allies naturally are those who are suffering, those who are deprived. Plus, there are members of civil society who are very keen and conscious and who want to do something. I mean the NGOs. And yesterday, Professor Oyasu, I was listened very carefully to your very fine lecture in which you pointed out that there should be a partnership between the NGOs and the government and also the donors. I'm not depending on the donors because I believe in utilizing our own resources and not getting help from outside. But this combination of non-governmental organizations who are sort of trying to fulfill the duties which were those of a state is very important. And I think we must increase taking them on board. Now, I must give you the example. There are many examples. There is the Indus Resource Center, which is working in Sindh. And my own younger sister has organized that. They are running about 200 schools in the remotest corners of the province of Sindh. They take the local teacher. Very often, she is done only 8 grades or 10 grades. They train that teacher, and the training is a routine work. And then they monitor those schools. The teacher is paid very little, but the schools are working. As a matter of fact, there was an English young man who was touring Pakistan in 2010, and he stayed in one of their hostels, and then he stayed back. And he's looking after 3 schools. Now this man is, Steve, is a master's in physics from London University, but he's teaching physics and mathematics in Sindhi language. And his Sindhi is better than mine, because when I visited that school, I started talking to him in English, and he started replying me in Sindhi. So that is the kind, there are crazy people like Steve in every country who have left their country. And to recall, his parents came over to see what the son was doing because there were so many disturbing news about Pakistan in those days. And the next day we found his father umpiring a cricket match which his school was playing against another. But this is what, I learned my physics and mathematics in Urdu language. I sat on the floor because there were no resources. And God bless my teachers. My comprehension of physics and mathematics and the concepts were very firm, so that I had no problem in advancing my studies to master's level and honors level in physics and mathematics. But this is something which has to be remembered. Well, I'll conclude now because I know that there are many other suggestions, but there are time limitations. Very often, and all of you must have experienced it, I see children begging at every crossing. They come and they knock at your cars. And very often I'm reminded of that learned professor of Hangzhou University, who was liberated by the People's Liberation Army and who was doing such a wonderful work for her country. And I start comparing. And people think that this small man is a very powerful man, being the Secretary General of the party and being the party leader in the Senate of Pakistan. And our party, as you know, is ruling Sindh for the last decade or so. So they think that I can do things, but I know that this small man can do very little. There are many obstacles, but those obstacles certainly have to be crossed, and they can only be crossed by a collective effort. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow students, I'm ready to admit, and I do admit because I know my own limitations, democracy does not produce great men. But it gives a possibility to a small man like me to join hands with others and to do great things together. One day we shall do.
I will not take more time. Obviously, you have been through these two talks and kind of touching talks in two ways, very different topics, but very relevant topics, right? I won't repeat what they said, but I was triggered to think about two points which came to my mind when I was hearing to both of them. One is about our shallowness of thinking, our surface level thinking, and not getting in deep into things which we actually commit to do. For example, when I was doing my research, and this was a time when a notion in teacher education was very popular. People used to say, teacher has to be facilitator. And this word is being very frequently used now as well. And my supervisor asked me to go to a school and find a teacher who can help me out in doing this experiment. I went and found a teacher and I told him, and he was very happy to help with me. He said, yes, I can do for you because I like doing research myself as well. So I said, okay, so from tomorrow you need to be a facilitator in classroom. He said, okay, I will do it, but just explain to me what should I do that I become a facilitator. I mean, I'm doing the thing my way today. From tomorrow you want me to change. What change should I bring in my process of doing so that I become facilitator? And this was a very hard question for me because I read it several times in literature. I was very happy that I'm doing something very fascinating, but I never thought about it, what I need to change, what kind of change I need to bring in myself to become facilitator. And then, I'll not go into details, but then we went through a process of discussion which helped us in deciding that facility is not forever. Facility is not given when it's not demanded. There is a right time to give facility and there is a right time to withdraw it in order to make the learner independent. So it's a hell of a job for me to be responsive to the needs of to whom I'm talking rather than planning ahead of going to class that what I want to do. Now, when I say I'll go to the class and facilitate, it means I need to be much more learned, much more diverse than what I am today in order to be able to address what people expect from me. So it was a small word which really took a lot of time for me to understand and to make it doable when I started doing it. So I was just asking myself when Dr. Devesh was talking about it, that do I really think into the words I'm using in my life? Do I really think into the terminologies I use in my profession? Very rarely I do. And just I do, and that comes to the point I heard that it's an age of showmanship now in this country. People who really work hard, they never come to the front. They are never consulted, very rarely. The people who can be a showman, the person who can do things and can make it demonstrate to the people, they are on the stage everywhere in this country. So our problems are very clear to us. Both of them has very clearly listed those things that we are facing. We need to move towards solution, and I'm really worried about it at times. It looks bad to talk about problems all the time, but it is it is what is going on all around, and how can I not talk about them? What I inferred from their talk is like, we need to correct our direction at political level, at bureaucracy level, and at technical level as well. We have got 3 levels where the elected people, they come to talk about people's will, and then this needs to be translated through our bureaucracy at the administration level, and then through a tier of technical people who really feed into it the way that should have been done. And at all 3 levels, this shallowness is killing us. Then we need bold people sitting there. We need intellectually good people, but people who can impress upon, people who can stand by what they feel is correct. Right now, what I feel by meeting people in all these 3 tiers is we are trying to please each other. We are trying to serve individuals' purposes. When I meet somewhere, my concerns are most of the time that how can I get benefit out of it? Not my nation can get benefit out of it. The people I'm talking about can get benefit of it. It's always that I cannot displease Taj Haider Saab because tomorrow, whatever I'm thinking about my career, he can be instrumental in that. Dr. Saab can be instrumental in that. So I always try to please them, not justifying what I'm going to do. So this is our second tier, third tier problem in our administration. And then criticizing ourselves is always good, but over-criticizing is again a problem for us. We do many things out of which many go wrong, but there are some which go correct. We have improved in the last 70 years, obviously not to the extent we are willing to, we aim to, but we have done things which are good. So when we are trying to criticize things, we should have patience to listen to others' point of view and then move forward with it. Whenever somebody talks about anything I'm doing wrong, it never means that they're talking about me. They're talking about something, some job which I was assigned to do, and they feel that I'm not doing it the way I should have been. So I should confine their comments to that task, not to my personality, not to me. So a culture, particularly in universities and educational institutions, a culture where we are not bound by the ranks we have in that organization, but by the value of the point which someone is making. In universities, for example, I feel that a lecturer can be much brighter than me because he's a generation newer than me. I'm an old man now, so my thoughts are stick somewhere back. So it's not because I hold a position I shouldn't allow anybody to comment on it, anything I do. Everybody should have right, and equal right to be listened. So there are several things, but the angels beside me always.
Chairman, Federal Board of Intermediate and Secondary Education, FBISE Islamabad. He deals with the internal as external issues regarding FBISE, and he also deals with the policy matters, look into complaints and suggestions from the stakeholders. Dr. Akram Ali Malik. The second panelist is Professor Dr. Khusro Dubash. He is Chief Academic Officer, Lampro Mellon, Pakistan. He is also Chief Academic Officer, and he also trained to recruit program ex-vice rector, intermediate and dean faculty of education at Foreman Christian College. He holds PhD degree from USA in educational psychology. We welcome you, sir, for this panel discussion. The third panelist is Dr. Shafqat Munir from Sustainable Development Policy Institute, Islamabad. He is Deputy Executive Director. He has more than 30 years experience in media communication, community resilience, development, and education. He has extensive work on community and disaster management. We welcome you, sir. I shall request Professor Dr. Shahid Siddiqui to please initiate the discussion.
And if our educational system is enhancing your skills and abilities to achieve those freedoms, this means that we are on the right track. Today's panel theme is focusing on two notions, that is quality and relevance. And I think they are not two different notions, they are linked. And when we think of relevance, the immediate challenge before us is 21st century. And that century is going to be a very competitive century where there won't be any room for mediocrity. And as they focus on what could be the requisite skills for 2050s, there are two very important documents. One is the book by Harari, 21 Lessons for 21st Century. And another document is World Economic Forum latest report. They talk about the potential skills which will be very important for 21st century. And some of them, I think we have been listening to those skills like critical thinking, communication, collaboration, flexibility, creativity, etc. But to me, I think the most important skill which is going to play a very vital part is creativity. And when we think of this relevance, I think we should not be, as Taj Haider Saab in his inaugural address warned us, that we should not confine the objective of education just to get a job. That could be one objective. But education should be playing a very important part in transformation of our society as well. So these are some of the themes which our panelists will be talking about. One skill, 2050s, which is going to be very important, is artificial intelligence. So let me start this discussion with a person who is sitting, Shafqat Saab, who is sitting next to us, to please share with us the role of artificial intelligence in 21st century and how our mainstream educational practices can incorporate that artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much, sir. I think the topic which I am going to discuss with you is artificial intelligence. Let me just share with you one important thing. I am among the first 10 people who interviewed an artificial intelligence shakar, jisko aap keh sakte hain, a newscaster. Sophia, you heard about it. I guess you have heard. We were in Germany, and she was participating as because she declared and she's a citizen of UAE. She owns the property. She owns their house and everything. So she was as an equal participant with us, sitting on the right chair with me as a participant, and on the same topic, artificial intelligence. So the artificial intelligence basically is growing in education field and all other fields, because this is the advancement of technology. Think when you receive an email, just an email, and underneath you find 2-3 answers already given by the Google or whatever browser you are using. Agree, disagree, yes, I will note it, I will note down. What is that? This is also artificial intelligence that reads through the text, that reads through your speech, which makes it possible that whatever you are thinking, and sometime when you give a brain thought in your mind and some gadget is around you, they pick your things, your smartphone. Once it was used as a telephone, or it was introduced as a telephone, but now it's a tracking device with you. Wherever you are, whatever you are thinking, what you are writing, everything comes back to you. 5 or 6 years, 7 years back, those who have been writing on Facebook or other social media outlets, Now, the things you have been thinking 5 years or 7 years back, they are coming up again. They prop up at a particular date and day when you have written 5 or 4 years back. And your thoughts are reflected because you cannot delete some idea, some thought from your mind, but in your memory it remains. And this is what artificial intelligence is also doing. Whatever you say, whatever you write, whatever you think, it's written somewhere. If you have spoken words, if you have written word, or if you have captured a picture. So in this era, when we are using artificial intelligence, even in the complex research methodologies, if you see you are putting up some data, your calculations are done. That is also through artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence in a time is coming up as competitor to most of your work we have been doing as a researcher earlier. As a researcher, I remember we used to have reference files with us. We were holding these kind of file folders, cuttings and everything was placed on that. Encyclopedia was used. But now, in a clicking of a button, you can have lot of choices of information with you. Now you have to sift through these information. If you are not catching up with this, or if you are behind in this technological field, education will not be relevant, so to speak, of quality. So that is, relevance, and if you will not be doing quality and you will not be relevant, then you will not be credible. If you want to be credible, you need to be relevant, and relevant with quality. And that is that we need to understand the tools and gadgets in research which are newly introduced. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dr. And I think it's very important to, this artificial intelligence, especially its role in 21st century. And so it should figure out in our curriculum in mainstream schools as well.
Yes.
Thanks very much. Yesterday, I was attending a session, and it was about good practices session. And one speaker was talking about STEM program, and that was science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? And I was listening to that, and it's very good presentation that these, areas are so important. I was wondering and I was thinking that all our problems are not just technical problems. There are so many things in our society which need a non-technical approach. For instance, these, challenges of extremism, fundamentalism, intolerance, and things like that. So I thought that one S is missing. And it should not be just STEM, it should be STEMs. And that S is of social sciences. So I would request Dr. Dubash, who has been with the FC University for such a long time, and who is a very relevant person to talk about that how social sciences and humanities are so important, especially these days for us.
Okay. Thank you. When I was asked to talk on this, STEM did hit me, but STEM eventually changed into STEAM. And the A was brought in as arts, and to me, arts is social sciences and includes all the social science aspects. Because I think Dr. Shahid Siddiqui is right, science and math cannot solve everything. There are other issues. There are what we call soft skills, essential skills, personal skills, people skills that people need in the job market today. And you will not get those coming from the natural or physical sciences and mathematics. You'll get them from the social sciences or the arts. Also, I was chairing a session earlier today, and the presentations were all social science and language oriented, and some very good presentations came about. Now, and I said this at the end, all these wonderful work is done, all the recommendations are done, it will get printed in a research paper, and then what? So what are the next steps? How does all this information reach institutions, reach the policymakers? How do we learn from the research that we conduct? If research ends up being a published piece of paper somewhere, it does no good to anyone. We must learn from the research. That is the way forward. Why do we do research if we are not willing to learn from it? And that then leads to good practices. Only when we look at research, learn from research, remodel our practices to make them current and in line with what we are trying to achieve for our students. As I said earlier this morning too, are our students future ready for their 2030, 2035, 2040? That's our job today. So yes, I think the social sciences play a critical role. They have been given stepmotherly treatment in most of our institutions, if not all, and I think that needs to change. Unless young people are aware of the social skills, social sciences, how do you get along, interpersonal skills, intrapersonal skills, and all those wonderful things that we expect young people to possess, but we never teach them that. So if we never teach them that, we don't do it in schools, we don't do it in colleges, and then we do hi-hi at university when they come to us, and that hi-hi is not going to help anyone. What are we going to do about it? I think we need to bring in mandatory social science courses for these young people to learn the skills that they will need in order to survive in their real future.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much. This notion of relevance has become very important because the speed of change has been expedited so many times. The same amount of change which used to take place in 10 years in the past is now taking place in months and in days, which means that this danger of becoming irrelevant is right there, staring at our face. So if you are not updated, and if you don't update yourself on a regular basis, you can become obsolete and you can become irrelevant. There is a danger for that, and especially in 2050s and 2030s, 2040s. When we talk of these skills, creativity is at the top of the list. That how, when you face certain problems and challenges, how your innovative and creative approach to that is there to resolve those issues. I personally, I can share with you my experiences of living in Pakistan and working with these, examination boards. If you apply for something, it takes, months and months to a change of address, for instance, and there are other challenges related to that. I think one person who really transformed this system, and the example is right there, federal board. In terms of its progress and in terms of its, innovative approaches, I think that can be considered as a role model. And luckily, the person who transformed that board is sitting with us. I would like to ask Dr. Ikram that how this creativity came to your help when you were looking at some major problems which were prevalent there in that board.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Dubash, Taj Haider sir, very respected. So, we talk about 21st century skills, and which is, of course, the dire need if we are interested to move along with the world. But I would go in a broader perspective, especially the dilemma of the developing countries is obviously a limited fiscal pie, the resources. So within these resources, the focus or priority of the developing countries has always been the quantitative progression. For example, we are struggling to attain the literacy rate. Whereas the quantitative progression, which is the most important, that is lacking behind, because we are still trying to encounter the quantitative aspects of our education system. So what happened in this pursuit, that with the passage of time we are investing to improve the numbers, but we are not investing, in fact, to improve the quality. So ultimately we are confronting with the two major issues. One issue is the quality of the output which we produce in different educational institutions, and the second is the, again, important issue is the standardization of the output. As the Dr. Saab has said, that once we look at the quality of the examination boards in Pakistan, we have multiple examining bodies. There are 29, 30 examining boards. But once we look at the quality of the output, obviously, we still need to do a lot more. But the most dangerous thing is the standard of the output across these boards. If we have a 29, 30 boards, if we gauge the quality of the output, believe me, the quality of the one doesn't match with the quality of the others. So that's why the different professional universities, they faced constraints in determination of the merit, and they started a rigorous exercise of the entry test. In fact, this is a sign of mistrust on the these examining bodies. So what happens that once we produce a graduate, then our employers, our universities, and our governments, they are unable to fix a certain benchmark. So what we need to is that until and unless we improve the quality of the output, and secondly, standardization of the output across the country, then such problems should go. So because of this reason, those people who can afford, they have started looking around from the alternate system of the education. That's why we have a multiple examination and education system in the country. And these examination system and education system in the country, instead to integrate the society, in fact, we are further causing disintegration in the society, and we are creating different classes in the country, which is a real threat to this country. Now, once we talk about the quality of education, we can't make responsible to a single body. There are multiple stakeholders. Specifically, if I talk with reference to the boards, the important is the student, the parents, the institutions, and the examination boards. Unfortunately, the focus of the teacher, the focus of the parent, and the focus of the student, they are more interested in the numbers and the grades than the actual level of the learning. And similarly, once we try to make some intervention to improve the quality of the papers, to improve the grading pattern, again we receive a threat from all these peoples, mean the parents, students, and the institution, and gradually we step back. So until and unless we take all the stakeholders at the same pitch, in fact, we can't improve our entire system. So, Dr. Saab, we introduced a number of interventions, and basically these were the focus on how we can set a good question paper and how we can grade the papers judiciously. Let me share a research study which we conducted and published in a very good journal. The issues of the reliability and validity of the paper, they are very serious. And the reason is that we just ask a teacher to come and write a paper for us. Whatever he writes, we administer and test the students. So in last couple of years, we decided to develop a question bank. So we trained the people. Then we followed a standard procedure to write, moderate, and then test the question item before subjecting them to the question item bank. Believe me, after this massive exercise, the output was the survival rate was 43%. And the 57% question, they were first written, then moderated by the two people, and then they were super moderated. And then we tested, and then we applied different statistical measures. The survival rate was 0.43, mean 43%, and 57% questions, they were not fit statistically. So this is the state of the affair. So until and unless we improve the capacity of all sides, especially the pivotal role is of the teacher, so we can't improve the system. So rest of the interventions, they are mostly relating to the operations. They may be discussed at some later stage. Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much. Thanks a lot. When we talk of quality, we should be looking at some common places of quality in terms of education. This means quality curriculum, quality textbooks, quality pedagogical skills, and quality assessment system, and quality school milieu. Only then we can expect a quality student or quality graduate. Well, one of my favorite books in education is Ivan Illich's book, Deschooling Society. And this book is a very, very short book, but it created ripples in educational debates. The basic thesis was that education in most of the mainstream schools is actually doing a harm to the society, because it is they are churning out monoculture robots who go to the society, get jobs, and having blinkers on their eyes. They don't care. They don't feel what is happening in society. And this is, unfortunately, is the practice in the most of the mainstream schools in Pakistan as well, where we see a transmission-based pedagogy, transmission of ideas and skills and attitudes from one generation to another, assuming that knowledge is static, knowledge is out there, and knowledge cannot be created or constructed, right? This assumption has been challenged, that knowledge is created and constructed on daily basis, right? So I think Taj Haider Saab is sitting with us, and I'll ask him this very simple but very important question. What do you think is the objective or aim of education in a society? Is it just getting jobs, equipping students with some set of skills, or it is something beyond that?
You have asked something very important. And let me start by saying that there are two basic instincts in human beings. One instinct is possessive. The other is creative. Possessive instincts compels us to take over what is not ours and what we see before eyes. Creative instincts, that compels us to share what we know with others and to open up new realms of the unknown. I think a major object of our education should be to suppress the possessive instinct, because it's the possessive instinct that creates so much of conflict, creates so much of decay, and completely erodes our moral values. The creative instinct is the one that should be promoted by education, that you create something new and you share it with others. If I make a painting, or if I write a good verse, and if I don't share it with others, if I don't show it to others, then I'm not making any contribution. I think it's very important to restore and to promote our moral values, because no society can live without moral values. the materialist values are perhaps causing so much of disturbance and conflict in our society. There are quite a few things that cannot be, that have zero value in the marketplace. Truth, honesty, service above self, justice, beauty. You can't buy them at the marketplace, but they exist, and they make our world beautiful. And there are people who keep these moral values dear, and there are people who have given their lives for the restoration and for promotion of these moral values. And it's because of those people that life is beautiful, that societies are built. Then there is a whole world of possibilities. The world, the universe before us has its own limitations. It has frontiers, it has boundaries. But as Allama has said, "Sitaron ke aage jahan aur bhi hai." The world of possibilities has no boundaries. It's unlimited. And let's go into that world of possibilities. Let's find new ways of doing things. And I think that's what should be the main direction of an educational institution, to have a critical approach. Al-ilmu bis-sawal. Maula Ali said, knowledge is by question. That whatever is there, we question it, and we take a critical look. And then what is not before us, what we don't see, let's go and see it. What we don't know, let's try to know it. And I'll conclude by a verse from Ghalib. हुई मुद्दत के गालिब मर गया पर याद आता है, वो हर एक बात पर कहना कि यूं होता तो क्या होता. New ways of doing things is creativity, and I think that's the main role of education. Thank you very much.
And, I think in this short period of time, our panelists did a wonderful job. They brought to limelight some of the important issues related to quality and relevance. And Taj Haider Saab's last words, I think they are so important for us that the biggest challenge to our education is this neoliberal model of education where maximization of profit is the only value. And so we have to bring back those values to education, and that reflection, thinking deeply about what you are doing and what is happening in the society, and exploring new territories. And one thing, this, raising questions. Taj Haider Saab talked about Ghalib. मुझे भी Ghalib याद आ गया है कि he is so good. And when you observe your surroundings, there are certain questions. अब्र क्या चीज़ है, हवा क्या है, सब्ज़ा व गुल कहाँ से आए हैं, अब्र क्या चीज़ है, हवा क्या है. And this is a lesson which is given by our Eastern wise people. Raise questions and think about the alternatives. Just raising questions is not important. Critical thinking is raising questions and also exploring the alternative solutions to those questions. And I think that should be the message of this panel discussion, that our educational institutions should be focusing on developing thinking human beings by inculcating in them critical thinking, creativity, innovation, and independent learning, so that when these thinking human beings go to the society, they should be able to challenge some of the taboos of that society, and they should be able to stand up. And they are the people who think about the problems, and they are constantly engaged in refining, in improving our living standards. Thank you. And you are absolutely right that this is a vicious circle. Curriculum, textbooks, poor pedagogy, poor assessment system, and producing. I personally think, and this is very personal view, that if I am given a chance, I would, focus on teacher and how to, empower our teacher in terms of skills. And because if the teacher becomes a thinking teacher, only he or she can produce thinking human beings. Unfortunately, the most important way of empowering teachers is teacher education programs in Pakistan. Unfortunately, those programs are not effective programs because the whole emphasis is gone to the pedagogy, giving them strategies and techniques, and understanding that job is done, and the report is given that we have at governmental level that we have trained 6,000 teachers. I think that is a very fake view of teacher education. If we cannot bring change at
सेनेटर हैं, उन्होंने बहुत डिटेल के साथ हमें एक लेक्चर दिया एंड आई थिंक अभी जो कमिंग टाइम है इसमें ज़्यादातर चीज़ें जो हैं वो हम ई लर्निंग की तरफ जा रहे हैं, रिसर्चेस की तरफ जा रहे हैं.
About this ICRPE 2020, it's fifth in its series, and I attended this event very regularly. Feelings are going to be unexpressible right now. There was a lovely gathering, the galaxy of intellectuals throughout the world, and especially this credit goes to Faculty of Education. Very especially Professor Dr. Nasir Mahmood's leadership is invaluable in this regard. Thank you very much.
मैं डॉक्टर अहमद बिलाल यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ गुजरात से. और इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस में इस्लामाबाद ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी में 2020 में हम एक डेलीगेशन के साथ शरीक हैं और इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में की नोट स्पीकर्स और जो रिसर्च पेपर्स हैं, राउंड टेबल्स हैं और इसी तरह से पोस्टर प्रेजेंटेशंस बहुत ही इफ़ेक्टिव थे और इसमें बहुत सी लर्निंग के लिए चीज़ें थी। हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी से एक 20 स्टूडेंट्स जो पीएचडी और एमफिल के हैं और फैकल्टी मेंबर्स उन्होंने इसमें शिरकत की है और 15 पेपर्स प्रेजेंट किए हैं। तो हम समझते हैं कि ये लर्निंग की बहुत अच्छी अपॉर्चुनिटी है और रिसर्च के कल्चर को प्रमोट करने में ये कॉन्फ्रेंस अपना बहुत ही अच्छा कंट्रीब्यूशन जो है वो कर रही है। थैंक यू।
आई एम डॉक्टर मुबीनुल इस्लाम। आई एम फ्रॉम यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ गुजरात। आई एम वर्किंग एज असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर एट डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ एजुकेशन। 2020 की इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस है। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह बहुत ही इंटरेक्टिव सेशंस थे और की नोट स्पीचेस क्वालिटी लर्निंग के हवाले से और क्वालिटी एजुकेशन के हवाले से बहुत ही इफ़ेक्टिव स्पीचेस, बिलखुसूस डॉक्टर दुबाश का आज का जो सेशन था ई लर्निंग के हवाले से बहुत ही इंटरेक्टिव था और थॉट प्रोवोकिंग सेशन था। यहाँ पे हमारे एमफिल और पीएचडी के अबाउट 22 स्टूडेंट्स जिन्होंने यहाँ पे अपने मकालाजात पेश किए और वो भी सारे क्वालिटी एजुकेशन से मुतल्लिक़ थे और अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह बहुत अच्छे सेशंस थे और मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ कि ये सिलसिला इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंसेस का अल्लामा इकबाल यूनिवर्सिटी में होता रहेगा जो वाकई रिसर्च और लर्निंग के हवाले से बहुत ही मौसर। थैंक यू।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम मोहम्मद तैयब है और मैं यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ गुजरात से इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में पार्टिसिपेशन के लिए आया हूँ। 2 दिन हमने इधर गुजारे और आज इसमें मुख्तलिफ सेशंस हमने लिए। सुबह अर्ली मॉर्निंग इंटरेक्टिव लेसन्स और हम अपनी टीचिंग और इंस्ट्रक्शनल मेथडोलॉजीज़ को कैसे बेहतर कर सकते हैं, बड़ा ही ज़बरदस्त सेशन हुआ और मैं समझता हूँ कि ये शायद हमारे मुल्क पाकिस्तान की सबसे बड़ी कॉन्फ्रेंस नहीं मगर ये सबसे बेहतरीन और क्वालिटी वाइज सबसे अच्छी कॉन्फ्रेंस है। तो इसमें इसको जारी रखना चाहिए और इसमें हमारे मुल्क के सबसे बेहतरीन एजुकेशनिस्ट और इंस्ट्रक्टर और सारे ट्रेनर मौजूद हैं और इसमें स्टूडेंट्स और ख़ास तौर पे एजुकेशन के रिसर्चर्स के लिए बहुत कुछ सीखने को है। शुक्रिया।
मेरा नाम हमायल है और मैं बीएस ऑनर्स में 4th सेमेस्टर की स्टूडेंट हूँ। तो बेसिकली मैं भी यहाँ पे एक रिसर्च प्रेजेंट करने आई हूँ। अभी ऑफिशियली हमने कोई रिसर्च पढ़ी नहीं तो इतना ज़्यादा एक्सपोजर हमारा कोई हुआ नहीं रिसर्च से ना। तो दिस इज़ द वेरी फर्स्ट कॉन्फ्रेंस दैट आई एम एवर अटेंडिंग। तो लेकिन पहला एक्सपीरियंस ना जो पहला एक्सपोजर होता है वो आपका ना कोई बिल्ड कर देता था कोई इमेज, तो बड़ा अच्छा रहा है। और ना लोकल लोगों के अलावा मतलब पाकिस्तानी लोगों के अलावा फॉरेन जो डेलीगेशंस थे उनकी वजह से मतलब हमें पता लगा कि एजुकेशन में लोग यहाँ के अलावा बाहर कैसे सोचते हैं और इतने सारे लोगों को सुनने का मौका मिला। तो लर्निंग के लिए इतनी अच्छी अपॉर्चुनिटी है और इसके अलावा आई थिंक लोगों को अटेंड करनी चाहिए इस तरह की चीज़ें ताकि आप अपने व्यूज़ तो हमारे पास होते हैं ना, लेकिन दूसरों को सुनने के लिए सुनने से ना हमारी लर्निंग इन्हांस और एनरिच हो जाती है जो कि डेफिनेटली हमारी ज़रूरत है ना। तो इसलिए आई थिंक लोगों को यहाँ और आना चाहिए। तो लर्निंग के लिए अच्छी अपॉर्चुनिटी है बहुत। तो इट्स बीन अ वेरी नाइस एक्सपीरियंस हुई है।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम महविश है। मैं एमफिल की स्टूडेंट हूँ यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ गुजरात की। हम एजुकेशन डिपार्टमेंट से आए हैं और इधर का इन्वायरमेंट बहुत ही अच्छा है। हमें बहुत ज़्यादा लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंस इधर से हुआ है। मतलब अच्छा अपॉर्चुनिटी है ये एक बच्चों को प्रमोट करने की। बहुत कुछ सीखा है हमने। की नोट स्पीकर्स भी बहुत अच्छे फॉरेनर्स आए हैं और हमारे माशाल्लाह पाकिस्तान